Welcome back. Now we're going to be talking about consequence strategies. And looking at the BSP form, you'll notice that when we talk about consequences, we're talking about how do we reinforce those replacement and desired behaviors that we've taught. And of course, how do we redirect and minimize reinforcement to problem behaviors? How do we effectively respond to problem behavior? We're going to first spend the time talking about how do we reinforce replacement behaviors. So when a student engages in the replacement behavior, we want to make sure we provide that student with the outcome that matches the function of their problem behavior. For example, if a student raises their hand and requests a break from a difficult task, we're going to make sure that we quickly respond by allowing the student to take a break, matching the function of his behavior. When we're reinforcing the replacement behavior, it's extremely important that the replacement behavior is reinforced immediately and consistently and regularly. So we want to make sure we provide multiple opportunities for the student to display the replacement behavior. And this is necessary for the replacement behavior to successfully compete with the problem behavior. We want to make sure that the student wants to do the replacement behavior more than the problem behavior. The next thing we want to do when we're reinforcing behavior is, of course, we want to focus on that desired behavior. And you spent a lot of time looking at approximations. We want to make sure that we reinforce those approximations and make sure those approximations are reasonable. So we want to base that on what is the student currently doing? How does this now compare to what we want? And will rewards be delivered often enough to strengthen and maintain the behavior? And definitely a question we need to ask is, do we have a powerful reinforcer? And what should guide us, obviously, is the function. If that student wants access to peer attention, we should make sure that he receives that for engaging in the desired behaviors. We also need to consider what are reasonable expectations. So if a student is currently out of his seat and off task for most of the class period, is not turning in any completed assignments, it's probably not reasonable to expect him to earn a reinforcer for being on task the whole entire period and complete all assignments for 1 week, right? So a more reasonable goal would be the student will be in their seat and on task for at least 20 minutes of the class period, and B, turn in assignments that are at least 30% completed for 2 consecutive days. And this is an initial goal. Remember, we're going to reinforce successive approximations, but we need to start and make sure that student is bought into the reinforcement system and bought into the plan. And so this is where we're going to start at a reasonable expectation. When possible, we want to make sure that we use consequences for desired behavior that match the function of the problem behavior. So if the function of the behavior is to gain peer attention for being in her seat and working quietly for 30 minutes, the reinforcer might be 15 minutes to work with a peer buddy. If the function of the student's behavior is to avoid difficult tasks for staying on task and completing over 50% of an assignment, the reinforcer could be a free homework pass. And so again, matching the function, avoiding difficult tasks, a free homework pass would be a great reinforcer for that student, because most likely they want to get out of that homework. So reinforcing the replacement desired behavior. Here's an example here, and you're going to tell me what the two best strategies are. When Pam is asked to work on long division problems in math class, she argues, refuses to work, and uses profanity in order to avoid the difficult task. Okay, right now her alternate behavior is to ask for an easier task. So I want you to tell me which are the two best reinforcement strategies. Remember, we want a reward for replacement behavior that serves the same function, and we want to have reasonable expectations for desired behavior. So let's take a look. Student earns teacher praise for staying on task. No, does not serve the same function, right? Student is given an easier task when asked appropriately. That's a keeper, right? Student can earn one free homework pass after completing all math assignments for 3 weeks. You saw that one was crossed off because, of course, it does match the function, but it is not reasonable. So that's why that one was already crossed off. A student can earn skip 5 problems card for each 5 long division problems completed. Does that match our two rules there. Okay, well, what about student earns 5 extra recess minutes for completing all worksheet items? Of those two, the top one is better because, of course, that student is getting the escape from the task and it is reasonable instead of having to complete all the assignments or all the worksheet items to get to recess. So yes, those are our top two. Let's look at another example here. So during independent seat work, Ronnie, he makes inappropriate noises and faces at peers. The function of his behavior is to get peer attention. We've been teaching him to ask. His alternate behavior, replacement behavior, is to ask to work with a peer. So again, we're going to choose two of the best reinforcement strategies. Hopefully you remember your rules. Okay, so student is allowed to sit by a preferred peer for 15 minutes if he is quiet and on task during seat work every day for a week. So sitting by a peer that gets attention. If he's quiet for the whole entire week, is that reasonable? No, right? So we're going to get rid of that one. All right, student will receive a free homework pass if he has no problem behavior during independent seat work. Well, what's the function of his behavior? Get peer attention. We're giving him a homework pass. Doesn't quite match, right? So we're moving on. When student is on task with no problem behavior for 15 minutes, he will be allowed to sit at the back table and read with a peer. All right, matches the function. Is it reasonable? Fairly reasonable. Okay, we'll move to the next one. Student is allowed to work with a peer when he makes noises and faces. Okay, it matches the function, but we are giving him the opportunity to work with a peer when he's engaging in the problem behavior. So that is definitely not a good strategy, right? And the student is allowed to work with the peer when he asks appropriately. Well, the replacement behavior is teaching him to ask to work with the peer, so that matches. And so, yes, that is our second correct answer for best reinforcement strategies for Ronnie. So on page 5.3, you have some examples here of reinforcement interventions for escape, for students who want to engage in problem behavior to escape tasks. And so we see some examples here: responding quickly, the student raises their hand, provide praise for making an appropriate request, to ask for help, etc. And we want to make sure that we reinforce the desired behavior and approximations towards those. And so an example of praise and reward students for being on task and giving effort and completing work. And we want to identify meaningful reward incentive for the student. So of course, if the FBA tells us it's to escape the task, we want to give him options, him or her options, to do that as a reinforcer for engaging in the desired behavior. On page 5.4, you'll see some recommendations around interventions for students who are working to obtain attention, and so they're having problem behaviors to obtain attention. And so we see we want to reinforce the replacement behavior by, of course, responding quickly for the student's request for our attention or for their peers' attention, and praise the student for making appropriate requests and provide attention that's requested. We want to give the student frequent attention for positive behavior, for reinforcing the desired behavior, and making sure that it's peer attention if that's what the function of his or her behavior is. And of course, for an incentive, most likely some peer attention or adult attention activities, so having lunch with the teacher or being able to play a game with peers. So these are some examples that you'll see on page 5.4. So now you have an opportunity to show that you understand the whole ideas around reinforcement and show these rules. And so you'll see the following example and describe how you're going to maximize rewards for both, remember, the replacement and the desired behaviors. So take a look at the scenario. It says during independent reading time in language arts, Audrey makes noises, talks out, and walks around the room for about 15 to 20 minutes, or 15 of the 20 minutes of independent reading time, and doesn't read more than one page from her book. The FBA has shown that this behavior is maintained by adult attention. Go ahead and complete that activity right now and you'll see the answers. Thank you.